Welcome to the new episode of the First Responder Playbook. It is my pleasure to have my guest today, Lyubim Kogan. He's a five-time first-generation immigrant, a Winter Olympian, an NYU Stern graduate, 9/11 survivor, and founder of wingsforheroes.org, a mission helping amputee and deaf combat veterans reclaim dignity, purpose, and joy through camaraderie, adventure, and flight. His journey spans Wall Street, trading desks, Main Street kitchen tables, crisis leadership in war zones, and humanitarian missions across continents. He's a national best-selling co-author with Steve Forbes and has shared the stage at the United Nations with Brian Tracy. Today, he's here to talk about rebuilding after a catastrophic loss and how to lead when there's no system, no money, and no applause. Lubim, thank you for joining me today, and it's my pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me, Brent. It's an honor to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into it. A five-time first-generation immigrant. Tell my audience about that.
Uh, my first experience with immigration was back in 1992. I was 17 years old. My dad came home one night and he said, we are moving to the United States. And I said, for how long? He said, for I needed just a few minutes because I knew that I wanted to ski. My sport was ski jumping. I was 17 years old and I packed up my ski suit, my ski boots, and a helmet. I wore my training suit and my running shoes, and that's how I came to America. And then for 24 years, I had a really long list of things that I'd like to accomplish. And you read the list. So I just got really busy. You read a lot about how hard immigrants work, and I kind of thought it was expected. They just kept working for almost 25 years. And I think when I got to the top of my career in finance, instead of monetizing on all the hard work and success, I just accepted a position with a nationwide infrastructure company, or at that time it was a failing company in Ukraine, and I started rebuilding what war had torn apart. So that's kind of a short story of going to the States and then getting to Ukraine. But I say five times because I obviously right now I live and I run Wings for Heroes from Turkey. And there are many reasons for that. We can talk about it later. But so going to the States, then I lived in Slovakia for almost 1 year, then Ukraine 2015 to 2021, and now in Turkey. And when I
That's
say
awesome.
immigrating, it means like you move to another country and you apply for a residency permit and you call it your home for an extended period of time. And since my experience with being
That's
living in different parts of the world.
that's awesome. That's a very unique story that a lot of people can't say that happened. Um, let's talk about the Winter Olympics and how did you go down that journey of like you said that was your sport, but the Winter
Yeah,
Olympics is kind of like the best of the best at that sport. Were you always headed down that path, or did you realize that, or
I think, Brand, there's going to the Olympics, I think, is one of the examples of a theory that I've been testing all my life. And I decided that I'm going to the Olympics a long time ago, when I was a little kid watching it on TV, walking around my grandma's living room. And when I came to the States, you knew what I brought. I brought my ski stuff. So I made a decision a long time ago. And my theory in life on how to accomplish big things is just take one step. So we're going to the States. If I want to ski, I grab my stuff. We come to the States. I asked my uncle to write to ski schools and see if I can go, and be a part of a ski school. And I got invited to the National Sports Academy at Lake Placid, which is 300 miles away from New York. You just go upstate New York. And we lived in New Jersey, just across the river. So we went for an interview. They liked me. They said we never had anybody from that part of the world. It would be really good for school, and they offered me a scholarship. So my first experience of living in the States, it was after 1 month I lived in the States. I got to go to a boarding school. I live with Americans. They teach me things. My roommate, one of live. I'm learning. I can ski as much as I wanted to. But that ended really fast because I repeated the 12th grade. And then after going to a small community college, I get into NYU, which is in New York City. And I get to New York and I realize that I'm 300 miles away from the ski area, right?
Yeah.
And the drive that I took with my uncle, now I have to figure out how to do it, if I really want to have a chance at the tryouts, because I knew if I stop now, it's finished. So I figured out that, I'm going to take classes until Thursday. Thursday, I got on the bus and I took bus from New York City to Albany. It's 150 miles. Then I picked up my car and I drove another 150 miles to Lake Placid. I skied Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I went back down to New York City. Depends, like if it wasn't the competition season, I would go Sunday night. But if it was to leave right after you wait for awards, the ceremony and time, and the competition season that runs into the night. And basically I did that 600-mile commute every weekend for more than 2 years. When the time came to qualify for the Olympics, we had really bad weather in Europe. There was no snow. It rained. Brent, for us to train, we had the World Cup in Poland. We had to cross the Tatra Mountains to Slovakia, train in Slovakia, and come back because in Poland it was raining. And it was so stressful, like for the national team. Year, you just show up. You have a schedule a year ahead and you show up. Or you recover, or you eat, or you sleep. It's a structured life. But because I was a student at NYU in the States, I didn't have that life. I have a life of going 600 miles to ski jump. So once we did that for 1 week, all the national team guys, they were finished before the competition even started. And I say I got lucky. I got lucky that I was practicing the commute while they were practicing the sport, and it came down to to mental exhaustion and psychological pressure, because it's one jump and you're going or not. You never know if you're going to get the second one, because the weather is a big factor in ski jumping, and that's basically how I practiced commuting harder than anybody else on the team, and I got lucky and I made it. But going there was just this magic, it was worth all the sacrifice, everything. And look, I'm 50. It's almost 30 years after the Olympics. People gonna do this, well, when I grew up, there were.
What is do you have a favorite story of your time during the Olympics, or anything that stood out to you?
At the games,
Yes.
my sport is ski jumping. When you go to the Olympics, every country has a quota. There's an X amount of athletes that can go. That quota is decided by results in the previous season or seasons, depending. There are rules that are written. So the United States can bring such a large team because we have so many athletes that place high in the rankings in different sports. With that, they earn extra spots in the Olympics. I didn't have US citizenship yet. I had a Ukrainian citizenship because it was 98, and I moved in 92. It was risky. Like, you have to state your country and ski for your country that year before the Olympics, and all the points, they count them and they see if you qualify on world level or not. Anyways, long story short, we were not the popular sport. We were like the C or D, you know, like the ones that 56. We didn't know if we were going, you know. They said ski jumping, maybe one person, maybe zero, maybe three. Like it was that toss. And at the end, there were three athletes plus one coach. We got 4 spots. But we were the last ones. We didn't know until we got on the plane. And when we get off the plane, obviously there's always a press conference if you have like favorites. And our biathlon team was favorites. So they take them off the plane, you know, it's separate exit, separate car. They go right away and they sit in the press conference. Yeah, and they have to be in front of cameras. When for ski jumping, when we got to go get our uniforms, the guy who was measuring us, he says, ski jumping. This is what sport? We say ski jumping. He looks at the list. He says like, okay, put your arms up. And we go like, he's like, put you all the way up. Go up like this. We go up like this. And he starts measuring us. And we're like looking at each other. And he says, don't worry, guys, it's going to be perfect because the only time you're going to wear a parade uniform is when you're walking at the Olympic parade and you're waving to everyone. So, you know, they measured that for this, not for normal. But, you know, when we got to Japan, they escorted the biathlon team to the press conference and we go outside, you know, outside of the airport, and there are volunteers and people who are meeting you. And there are these guys that are running and they're yelling, ski jumping, ski jumping, ski jumping. We're like, yes. They run and they're like, where is your stuff? And we're like, this, and this. They grab our stuff and they run away. And we didn't see our things. We found our bags at our place in the Olympic Village, and our skis were at our booth, which was like a 40-minute drive at the ski jumps. And the reason for that was because if you look at the results, like that year, the Japanese ski jumpers, they had like 5 competitions where they had 1, 2, 3 on the podium. And it was the most popular sport in Japan for the Olympic Games. So for them to meet a ski jumper was a huge deal. And the guys who got measured suits to wave at the parade, we actually got the warmest reception.
That's awesome. How did you end up doing at the Olympics?
I qualified for both finals, and on the large hill, I was second from the end. Yep.
That's
When, you know, somebody has to stand at the end of that line. And the Olympics before, we actually had a very good friend of mine and like an older brother, a mentor on the team. He was last on one of the ski jumps. And I knew that, you know, I don't want to repeat that performance. But smaller hill, I did really well. And big hill, I was really grateful that South Korea brought a skier who took the honorable place. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's still an amazing accomplishment, regardless.
But
You know,
look, you know, like people listen to it. It's just like once you're an Olympian, you're an Olympian. It's always the goal. My goal was to make it there. You know, like I knew my chances were just almost non-existent. It's a dream to make it to the Olympics, you know, because like you have this tunnel that you go through, and on the other side is the Olympic ceremony. And like going through that tunnel is a big deal because once you come out on the other side of the tunnel, you accomplished something that like 0.0000000% of people accomplish in the world. And it was really satisfying, you know.
absolutely, and that's something that no one can ever take away from you, and the fact that you were an Olympian athlete. You know, and so that's an amazing accomplishment first and
Thank
foremost.
you.
I gotta ask, since you were in New York City, I am the random New York Mets fan in Oklahoma. Are you a baseball fan at all?
No, I'm not. I'm not really, you know, I cannot watch sports. I have I cannot even watch ski jumping, you know.
Yeah.
So
No,
like
I get
I
that.
gave up TV long time ago, really, Brent. And it's like I find myself fascinated with a lot of things that I want to learn, and I'm actually learning and doing. And with Wings for Heroes, it's been like all consuming. So I don't know if
Yeah.
I was a fan of any sports. I don't know where I would find time to watch it because I work on all time zones. You know, like
Yeah.
coming meeting with you on Saturday, it's like daytime for you. It's 7:30, 8 o'clock here.
Yeah, I've ran into that a few times as I work on my doctorate. A lot of my people in my cohort are in like Africa, and they'll tell me these crazy times that they're doing these meetings at, and it's like noon here, and I'm like, I feel so
Yeah,
bad for them, but that's the best time it works for everybody to meet up. But it's
right,
like overnight there, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
Brent.
Yeah,
What are you working? What doctorate are you getting? What are you? You
uh,
said doctorate, yeah? Did I hear you
yes,
correctly? What?
strategic leadership.
Wow.
Uh, yep. I want to make the first responder world a little bit better place than when I started, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's my way of doing it. And so I've learned a lot. I've got about I should be done this time next year, and so I've got a year left. I can finally see the finish line, and I am ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly to the point I've got so much knowledge up here that it's kind of overflowing, and
Yes.
but it's been such a great experience because I truly want to make this first responder field a little bit better place than when I started.
How will you do it practically? Do you have a plan? Will you start a company? Will you go work in the existing system? What's your vision for the?
So my first goal is to start a company for like life and career coaching to help first responders. Like, I mean, I tell people for a long time in law enforcement, we were told to check our personal life at the door when we showed up to work. And that's just not realistic. Your personal life affects your job affects your
Yeah.
personal life. And I wish earlier in my career I had somebody to kind of guide me where I wanted to get career wise, but also life wise. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't there. There wasn't a support system. And so I want to change that outside of law enforcement to help those first responders. But I also really want to do it from the inside as well and have career coaching inside law enforcement to help them get professionally where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because a lot of times in the first responder world, you're kind of just told, hey, do your job and move on. There's no career development to push you to get better or come out of your comfort zone. And I want to change that. There are a lot of good cops out there that just do general police work for 25 years and they could do so much more, but there's no one there to help them and say, hey, here's a good training, like let's get you there. How are we going to plan to get you there, or how are we going to make you professionally develop better to get you wherever you want to be at? And those support systems aren't there right now at a lot of
Mm-hmm.
places. And so I really want to tackle it twofold, one a little bit from the outside and a little bit from the inside, and make it better overall.
Mm-hmm. So you're creating a system that, because the existing system cannot keep up with the demand of people that service or that work for the
Yeah,
system. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I truly believe that if you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to serve the citizens? And so I really think that mental health matters as well. And so I want to
Mm-hmm.
address those mental health issues before they get out of control. And
Mm-hmm.
coaching conversations can definitely help with that. And then you got to set up that support network to where if they need more help, refer them to therapy or whatever the case may be. But as you probably realize, doing Wings for Heroes, um, a lot of those mental health issues are just not, the support system's not there in the military, the first responder world, and we need to make those things better. And so that's my goal, is to start out and be the middleman before those things get
Mhm.
out of control to address those issues.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying because I had to study the US system. You know, our system is the strongest. We have the most benefit, we have the most professionally trained staff. You know, it's like the highest level, yet at the same time, there is a system that exists. I'll talk about military. I will not talk about first respond, but that, like, let's say we have the military, right? We have the system, the benefits that exist for them after they come back from serving. And the ones that are in combat and, you know, they had some experiences that they come back, like, I don't know, like as a non-professional, non-doctor, they look to me like they are shell shocked.
Yeah,
Like, you know, something happened to this individual. It's a tough, strong guy, everything, but you can tell that, you know, it's like that the person is somewhere there behind, you know, and they're not really able to come back and function normally in our, you know, in a society, because, you know, he was a soldier, he was a part of a bigger unit, that was part of a bigger unit, so there was a lot of structure, right? And the job, the everyday activities, everything was like, you go there, you do this, right? You just follow directions. And now coming back to normal life, I see that they're like, yeah, there are benefits, but they don't even have that energy, that ability to go and really get those benefits. And what you are describing, and how I see it, is saying, look, we have the situation where, look, you're in this job, you gotta be tough, and you gotta suck it up, and you gotta get through it. So do it. And you're saying that it really, you know, you also have, you know, like PTSD, burnout, like in your job, I would assume, and the stress level is extreme all the time.
yeah,
So you are that bridge, you're becoming the connector to connect people that need that help. And you would be, look, I'm here to show you that you can go, you know, in this case it's in the counseling or just the community, or you can talk to this person, like that. And, you know, I see a lot of similarities. This is exactly what I tried to do, because there's no system. You know, I started with Ukrainian veterans because they have absolutely no system right now. They are at war. And I started with amputees because I thought, okay, if I take those, they're definitely, you know, one of the most difficult cases, and they need help more than anybody else. And I assumed that that help they needed more urgently than anybody else, because, you know, they've been pushed so far. And you know, this, it just I did it myself because I really wanted to see what they need. You know, when you start fundraising and getting people working for you and getting offices and growing, then you have to financially support the whole machine. Where I'm saying, look, if I'm self-funding it, I can follow one guy and look at what he's doing, like what his life is like right now, which is sitting at home, depressed, no future, you know, fell out of the system, the old chain link that's been replaced, you know, like that, really sad. What would it take to come back to life? What do I need to do? What does he need in the whole process? And how long will that approximately take? And, you know, like on all our logos, if you see this, this is a real person. It's our #1 guy who we flew. And for your listeners, Wings for Heroes, the idea was to take amputees who, you know, combat amputee veterans, and bring them to a nice warm beach where it's quiet and peaceful. Show them culture. I live in Turkey again. The culture is really rich. It's hot weather, and, you know, culture matches the environment. And then the highlight would be taking them paragliding. And a lot of psychologists say that sometimes a person needs a positive traumatic experience that will shock them back into life, and that's all it takes. And I thought, okay, you know, but first time I went paragliding, I thought I was going to die, and I had no other problems. You know, man, all other problems went away. And I thought, okay, if we take an amputee and we go off the mountain, maybe I think there will be a short period of time where they will forget that they're missing a leg or two. And you know, it actually it actually worked. And yeah, so
I
I
love that. So let's talk about Wings for Heroes. What what drove you to start that, and then how did it really take off?
uh, I think it goes all the way back. I was born in the 70s, and at the beginning of my childhood, the Afghanistan war started, and it lasted until I was a year, almost a year, graduating from high school. So like seeing my whole entire life, the consequences of that, it was, in that time there was absolutely no system. It was really strange situation. Then 40 years, we are 40 years now after that event, and I see 5-year-olds right now, they're growing up with the same story. Only this time I think it's a lot worse. One reason is because it's in the middle of Europe, and the second reason is because for the first time in modern history of the world, a nuclear power nation is using that nuclear power as a blackmail, and that's, I think, the real reason why nobody could really stand up to Russia. It's not anything but the fact that they have an atomic bomb. The way I see it, it's called blackmailing. But in any case, when you see a history repeating itself, like, I think there are two things you can do. Number one, you can just look away and say, hi, I'm like everybody else. I just don't want to be bothered. There are tough guys like Brent and others. They can go take care of it. I'm protected. Somebody will come save me. Or you can do something about it, and in this case, doing something about it, like when 2015 was 1 year after Russia annexed Crimea. It's the real beginning of the war. But it was isolated to the east and southern part, and it was treated as a terrorist operation because Russia did not claim it. It's not our soldiers. We don't know what's going on. The whole world just standing by looking the other way. But the fact is that war started in 2014. So 2015, I get there, and I think it was like maybe 2016 or 17. It was still early on. I was running a nationwide company. We had 92 gas stations, and I was at one of our gas stations, and I see this guy, double amputee. He's like rolling out of the store, and he's going towards the highway. But on the highway, there is no pedestrian walk. There is nowhere to walk. And I remember thinking, like, where's this guy going? And I get busy, and it was maybe less than half hour. We had this huge thunderstorm came, like cold front with thunder, lightning, just downpour. And I called the garage and I said, look, I need a pickup truck now. And pickup truck, sure, that's one thing, when you work for a big company with gas stations, you have cars all over the place. And the pickup came, and yeah, I said, we're going in that direction. We're following the guy. And to give you and your listeners an idea, we are 25 miles away from Hungarian border and 25 miles from Slovakian border. So we have two border crossing. It's all trucks. It's non-stop wall of trucks going. And we find this guy on the side of the road. He's wet, he's muddy, nobody stopped. We put the chair in the back, and we put him in the car, and we drove him to whatever. And I remember, you definitely will know what I'm talking about. When you sometimes find people like they're alive, but the clothes is too big. It's just like, it's like a candle that is almost ready to die off. That
Yep.
guy was in such bad shape, like there's not much life left in him. And I remember like thinking, like standing there looking at this guy, realizing like, somebody came, just took him out of his house. They sent him somewhere, and then he came back, and this is the end of his life. The end of his life would have been on the side of the road. And I'm like, now I am grateful that we found him, that somebody, like a real hero, goes out with a positive memory, like with some good experience. Somebody picked him up, got him cigarettes, got him food, whatever. And I really knew, like, it's just like the knowing, and this decision was made that I have to do something. Like I keep seeing the same thing my whole entire life, and I'm questioning why, but like it's enough time questioning it. Why? Well, because it's the way it is, and they need help and they need it right now, not like next year, not in 10 years. And what happened with Wings for Heroes was that, you know, I am asking somebody to trust me with a war hero who is missing a leg or two, and I'm going to go and throw them off the mountain. Like, we're going to go together and jump off the mountain. So you understand that doing that in the United States is not even a question starting off. I was a registered investment advisor. I started and ended hundreds of companies. I know how liability works, and I knew that I needed the lawyers, and I needed permissions, and I needed insurances, and I needed policies, procedures, all that stuff, years and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, just to start to just take this such high liability idea and actually literally take it to the air. And it was April last year. We had 9 drones that came in, 9 Russian drones came in, and they destroyed our most valuable asset. We had, outside of gas stations, we had storages, oil storages, and the oil storage looks like, you know, we have our railroad that comes to our oil storage. We have a customs area. They can unload into customs, and then it can be the oil could be loaded into the across the border. So it's actually, it's a really big operation. We have tanker trucks, you know, those trucks that carry diesel and gasoline to the gas stations. So, and we were not full, but there was 1.3 million liters of diesel. And when the drones came and started blowing it up, they melted all the silos where the fuel used to be stored, and all the tanker trucks, they didn't even have, you know, tires left on them. It was complete destruction. So that part gets wiped out. I'm clear that I have to start over, you know, because when the war starts and you work for a company, like, I didn't take the salary because I couldn't take at the beginning. We were losing money for 5 years, and it was just accumulating. So my interest was long term. You know, I was a part owner, and I wanted to see this thing work well. And whenever it gets sold down the road, that was my retirement plan. You know, and well, that plan went away with smoke and with a lot of fire, actually, and smoke. And I get a call from the governor of our area, and he says, "Lyubim, I have a guy for you. You can fly. We found you a hero." And he says, "I am here sitting. I know I need to restart the business, and here I am. I really actually can make this thing happen." And the guy who they found us was a double amputee. He got scheduled for a surgery just like a week before coming out. And we got another guy. So our number 1 guy, he is missing 1 leg, but I watched him this whole year. And he's a big success story. You know, he's what makes Wings for Heroes different. Like I told you, I wanted to follow and see what they need. And with this guy, it was perfect, you know, like in really unfortunate way, because after we flew him, he went home and found out that they didn't do the first amputation correctly. And they had to do it again. You know, they had to take the part that was dying off. They had to cut it off again. It's rehab. It's new prosthetic. It's walking, learning to walk again. And he's the kind of guy who, his girlfriend warned us. He said, you know, when he lost his leg, he asked us not to come because he says it was too painful. He needed to scream, and he couldn't scream while family was in the room. So he asked them not to come. And she said for like 4 weeks, we heard nothing of him. He isolated. And he isolated for a while. And then we had the opening of the season. And because he's a number 1, I said, look, you are welcome to come, you know, opening and closing of the season. And we have 2. At that time, I had 1 program, which is recreational. You come, you stay here. Right now, it's for 10 days. We take our veterans everywhere. And the highlight is we go paragliding. Now, we added scuba diving because we had, you know, we had 1 came and said they wanted to go scuba diving and they really like it. So we have scuba diving now. But in any case, when our number 1 came back, I took him to my physical therapist, and I think we talked about it, that he needed a month of rehab. So now I added rehabilitation, and I brought him back, and we did a month of rehab. He qualified for a new prosthetic that was $75,000. It was paid by the government. And he just became a captain of his amputee soccer team. So the war started 10 days after he turned 20. All he was soccer, 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 soccer. He goes to the war, he loses a leg, he's depressed at home. Then somebody, angels find and send him to Wings for Heroes, and a year and 7 months, I think, after we started working together. He's traveling the world independently. He just took his girlfriend to Paris, and that's one of the ideas why Wings for Heroes, I hope, can stay in Turkey, because if an amputee can travel from the United States and get here, it gives them so much confidence. Like when you lose a limb, you kind of assume that there are certain things you cannot do, but if you go through, borders, changing planes, somebody forgets a chair, all these difficult things, and you get here, or like he did, he got here, and after 2-3 trips, there are no issues with language, there are no issues with mobility, there is no issues with being by yourself. So I know what it takes, Brent. I know what it takes to bring somebody who lost something that cannot be replaced, part of our body, and make them fully functioning. And I think the biggest part that is missing in the current system is that camaraderie, that there is a place somewhere that exists that I can just go to and, sit on the beach with the guys, and nobody's, it's like, they lose that community, and I recreated that community as much as possible outside, outside of the government, outside of organization, outside of anything, just on the beach in the middle of nowhere. We're in the
I
city,
love
but
that.
it's a small city.
Yeah, I love that. If my listeners would want to help out or donate, where can they reach out to you at to help out with that cause?
Brent, everything, I've tried to put everything on wingsforheroes.org. I don't know if you've put a link, but it's wings4heroes.org. And it has, I started making videos about what our work looks like. And one more thing before I say it, I just forgot the most important thing. As every accountant, after getting something done, I've added the numbers, and I was like, okay, now I gotta go see what other people are spending, because maybe we are rolling in the dough here, just burning cash. So flights, housing, food, 12 physical therapy sessions. We had 8 one-on-one swimming sessions. We have unlimited cycling, because the cycling coach here, he 2 times Olympian. He took Turkish team. He went with the Turkish team to Rio and London Olympics. He's a good friend. He's always ready, for him. He brings kids. His kids ride with our veterans. He's like always into doing something, organizing. So we have cycling, swimming, physical therapy, flight tickets, housing, food. It cost me $4,000. Yeah, I did all the work. I drove, I scheduled, but then I went and I looked at what charities spend, and I just want to say I'm not a charity, I'm a mission. I'm not going to say, look at this, there are no sad stories. If you look at Wings for Heroes, it's all victories. It's all, winning and just showing, being inspirational. Nothing like, so sad, help me. In any case, I looked at the charities, and some spend on operations 4+ times more than I spend on the whole thing. So if somebody wants to help, you will be helping an organization that I'm the only guy who runs the organization. We have no salaries. This office has been donated by a local business. Whatever we can do. I have more than 100 volunteers. That's my biggest strength. And I offer 24-hour concierge support when our veterans come here. And I try to put the story out on wingsforheroes.org. There are two ways that you can support us. Number one is on the side. If you hit support button, you can buy our branded hoodie and a sweatshirt, and a hoodie and a t-shirt. And I don't call them t-shirts and hoodies. They're the promise made or promise capped, because what I did was I added $40 to the cost of each. And if I sell 100, that buys 1 month of fully covered rehab for an amputee, with all the physical therapy sessions, transport, everything. And all the money that goes from sale of merch goes to that. And then there is another one. I am looking for partners because I just came back from the States, and I'm going to start speaking at VFWs around. I immigrated to the East Coast, so I started in New Jersey, and Wings for Heroes is a Colorado Public Benefit Corporation. So the next would be Colorado. But I want to bring the recreational and also rehab options to the US veterans. And I have a spot in the States. I found a place in San Diego. Do you know Torrey Pines, where they play golf?
Yes.
That the famous, well, adjacent to it is the Torrey Pines glider port. And Torrey Pines glider port has a chair. So we can fly, anybody in the chair, and they have the pilots. And that would be a spot where I will start flying in the States. And I also want to start bringing them here for rehab, because it will be cheaper and the results would be a lot better, because I have the community, the support, I have the environment, food, I have the sea, the weather, I have everything here at a lot less. So I can fly them here, rehab them here for a month or two, for however long is needed, and fly them back. And the way I will keep this efficient is that I thought, I will just rent a place. We rented an apartment when an amputee rehab. We know what they need. And instead of, using hospitals, using hotels, using anything, I'll just find an apartment and I'll rent it for a year, and I'll just need to be funding individual people. And that way I can keep my costs down. So for the supporters, if somebody goes wingsforheroes.org and hits the contact button, the information will go to me, and we can talk about it, because I understand that, like supporting a mission and organization, it takes a lot more. But hey, if you wear our t-shirts or sweatshirts, that would help a lot. And if you'd like to do more, I open all the bank statements. Our supporters can look once a quarter. They can examine our bank statements. Later on, I'll have an accountant putting out reports, because as an accountant, I looked at the charities that support veterans, and basically what I see is a big charity industrial complex that extorts a lot of money from good-hearted people, and some of them spend more than 90% not on veterans, and some of them spend tens of millions of dollars on fundraising, and they classify it as charity or veteran services on their financial statements. And like, if you didn't study accounting, you wouldn't know where to go and what to look for. I saw it, I know where it is, and I think, I really think it's wrong to use somebody's misfortune, or I don't even know how to call the situation, but like, yeah, let's say misfortune, and create a job for yourself with benefits, with,
It's
yeah.
I've noticed that there's in the past, I say 10 years probably, there's a couple of the big name charities out there, and like some of the
Yeah,
salaries and what their actual money
yeah.
goes to is just wild. It's
You know
not
what's
what
even more wild? Yeah, they give themselves salaries, they spend money like crazy, but they have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. That is one of the things that I will never have money in the bank, because I just cannot help all the veterans. I can't, and nobody can. So how could a charity justify having millions in the bank? They say we have homeless vets. Well, we have one charity, one, that can cover a few states. with the cash they have in the bank. And I am sure if you gather all the veteran charities and you say, "Lo, until we don't have a homeless veteran in the States, you are not allowed to keep more than, make a percentage of that." They can build the houses because there are billions sitting in the banks that should be. And I'm just talking about veteran charities. I haven't looked at them all, but I looked at the veteran charities, and it's appalling what's happening there.
Yep, I agree
No.
wholeheartedly. I would be remiss to not talk about, um, you were involved in 9/11. Can you talk about that a little bit? Your experience with that?
Yeah, well, your first responder show. Yeah, one of the slogans I use for Wings for Heroes is that my service begins after thank you for your service ends. So when I say thank you to you and all the first responders, I do it every day by doing this work. I'm very clearly aware why I'm here, and it's thanks to you. And I really wanted to come to the show. And I hope you would ask me this question because we are coming up on 25 years very soon. And I know that a lot of first responders are dying right now and waiting for the benefits that they earned on that one day. And I used to work in the World Trade Center. I was late for work on 9/11. I saw my best friend from an accounting class the night before. He worked at World Financial Center, which was right across the West Side Highway. So, if you're not familiar with New York, you basically, from the World Trade Center, I needed to cross a highway, take a bridge over, and he was working there, but his boss kept him late, and we started late, finished late. I was late for work, and by the way, until that day, I was never late, not once in my entire life, because it was my dad's thing, that he used to say that punctuality is privilege of the kings. One of those things that you're raised with as a little kid that you always do. That thing was for me being on time. And I remember that day, like, I saw my boss and I didn't run for it. First time in my entire life. We're talking about 2001. I came back from the Olympics in '98. So 3 years later, I was relatively in good shape. So if I wouldn't catch my boss the next stop, I would run one more. That was my thing. And that day I didn't run for the boss. And that day I decided I want to get out one stop early. In New York City, I could take the train to the World Trade Center stop, then take an escalator to the elevator, to another escalator, to an elevator that took me to 83rd floor. And I didn't need to go out and see the daylight. I could go south, north, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, and not go outside, just ride all the way into the building. I went out to get, some coffee, and it was right before 9 o'clock, and people were already standing, looking up at the sky, and I could see the light gray smoke coming out of what seemed our part of the building. We were in the North Tower, the one that got hit, but it got hit from, I think, from the south side, and you could see a little bit of smoke. And I was standing on the north side, and people were talking about different things, how the crowd speculates. But when I heard the sirens and I looked up, in New York City, I'm in Chambers. We're one block, which is one building away from the entrance into the World Trade Center. And if you look up, it was like lights, sirens, and they were going so fast. It was clear that it was not minor, it was major. Like the response was so massive, and how they were all piling in. Like, it's relatively small area, but you see all these cars and fire truck is just like, and that I need to stay away. The message was clear, like people who are running in, it was just it was so just like a machine, like somebody pushed the button. I was like, okay. I started walking away, and that's when the South Tower got hit. So I was, I felt that it shook the whole Manhattan. It was like, the whole ground jumped. And I can tell you a lot of things about that day. Like, what are you interested in? Because, you know, we had some people that were in the building. I was outside of the building going north. We had so much happening in one day. Like, which aspect of it? What happened after? What happened during? What happened with people who were in the building? What would you like to
Yeah, I
know?
would like to. I would like to hear about you know, what happened during and the people in the building for sure.
Okay, so our company, um, we had different teams, and living in New York, the teams were divided by country of origin. So the hardest working team and the team that showed up first were the Chinese team and our tech guy, because the tech guy was responsible for setting up all the trading terminals and making sure that when the market opens, everything is working. And on Monday, it was, I think September 11th was on Tuesday. And on Monday, we had a visitor. It was a guy who started working for another company that was our boss's. The owner of our company was a friend of the company where that kid started working. They were also across the West Side Highway, and they sent him. He's a trainee. He has to sit and watch. You know, it's like big. The trading floor looks like a bunch of computers. There's nothing going on. Just guys and girls are sitting around trading terminals, and he. It was his second day at work. He's not in the company where he's supposed to be. He goes to the bathroom. And if you think about the World Trade Center, I had to walk one hallway. I'm going north, then I turn right, I'm going east, then I turn right, I'm going south around the building to get to the bathroom. This guy goes to the bathroom, and meanwhile, the plane hits the building, and the Port Authority, which is the authority that managed the World Trade Center, they come on TVs and intercoms. They say, look, something happened in the building. We're investigating. Do not move until further notice. And they go off the TVs and the intercoms. Well, a few minutes, seconds later, this guy walks in the bathroom. He opens the door. When the plane hits the building, the smoke goes down the shafts. It blows out all the covers, the shaft covers, and the smoke goes out and it burns him. So he runs into the office and he's yelling, oh my God, guys, there's a bomb in the bathroom. And our tech guy looks at this visitor and he says, okay, guys, we are getting out. And he gets everybody, all the Chinese team and whoever was in there, they get that burnt guy and they start walking down the stairs. So the reason why everybody, and he actually made it down, and they said when they made it down to like 30th floor, there was a lot of traffic because some people down below, nobody knows what happened up in the 90, 100, right? And some people are like, oh, fire drill, and we don't want to walk. And they said they picked up that guy and they said they started walking on heads of people because they knew that it's real. They said when they got to the main level, that's when all the emergency responders starting yelling that just get out, run. And they said they ran out. When the door opened, they said you could not see. It was, the South Tower was coming. We were in the North Tower. It was hit first, but because it was hit higher than the South Tower, it came down. It stood a lot longer. I think an hour later, but it was hit early. Anyways, while the South Tower was coming down, they were in the lobby and they saw an ambulance parked on right outside. They crawled under the ambulance with that guy, with the burnt guy. And they were one of the white people walking across one of the bridges that we saw on TV, on the magazines. And I think it was 7 o'clock at night when I found out, when I finally was able to reach somebody who reached our boss, who said that he accounted for every single person in our office. So we were on 83rd floor, and just a few floors above us was Cantor Fitzgerald. And Cantor Fitzgerald lost the most people on 9/11. I think it was more than 600. And same building, 10 floors above, 15 floors above us, and a very, very tragically different outcome. But for our company, fortunately, the guest who got burned in the toilet, in the bathroom, and the actions of our tech guy, he saved everybody. And they
And
carried the guy all the way out.
that's an amazing story. Can you just kind of describe the chaos after that? I mean, that's living in Oklahoma, we have the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, which prior to the World Trade Center was, the biggest domestic terrorist
Yeah.
incident in the United States. And so I understand that. Um, but that's just mass chaos. It's not today where, everybody has a smartphone, but even if they were, I mean, the networks got overloaded pretty quickly.
Cell phones
Um,
didn't work.
yeah,
We didn't have cell phones. I remember going to payphone, and I would, line is huge line. I would take out my World Trade Center ID. I would walk to the front. I would show my World Trade Center ID. They would let me call. I used it twice. So cell phones did not work. In terms of, from what I remember, the response was so massive, right? That before the second building got hit, nobody knew what was going on, but the response was massive. After the second building got hit, I just stood there. Well, I'm an observer, right? So I can you can better analyze it. You see a huge crowd running north. You see a few guys in, brown jackets, blue jackets, they're running across. Like if you're standing from the outside, it's clear, like these few guys trying to get through. It's after the crowd is running, because, who was in the World Trade Center? They were already in the World Trade Center, but when the second one got hit, it looked like anybody in the uniform, they just started running towards, it was just like massive. Everybody in that direction. Then the crowd runs away screaming, and they stop. Everybody stops. It seems like everybody turns around, like after the smoke, like the smoke, the fireball goes out, goes in, the screaming stops, it's silent, everybody turns around, and everybody starts walking towards the World Trade Center. Like it was just massive, like rubber band. And then everybody walks, and then everybody stops, people stop and people start looking. But nobody went in, because what you were doing, the response was so massive. It's like, it's like there's only so much water I can get into this bottle. And you took all the space. There was no space, no question, should I go and help? It was just like, just go away and don't get in the way of people who are professionals and they're doing their job. That was my feeling. I stood outside for a little bit. I looked up. When I saw people going out the window, I knew that I don't want to see anymore, because we had those conversations up there many times. They tried to blow it up in the 90s, and when they drove the trucks under the South Tower. And it was one of my coworkers' mom. She had a group of tourists visiting, and she was on top of showing people, on top of the World Trade Center. And we had this conversation that if anything happens, the staircases are narrow, and it just, knowing that getting out from there would be really difficult. So knowing that somebody who ran in there, man, it's just, wow.
yeah, it's such a tragic event, and my heart goes out to everybody who lost someone, and then the first responders who actually had to go in there and see those things, because it's one of those things you don't. I don't want to say you don't prepare for, but it's something you hope to never see, and then for it to actually
Yeah.
happen, it affects them, the rest of their lives for sure, whether on the health side, mental health side. Um, it's just such a tragic event.
Yeah.
I
Brent, like I just want to say it from the point of view, like I was there and I walked away, and I didn't stay, I didn't stay. People who I worked with, everybody got out. So like for firemen, policemen, all the first responders, they lost somebody who was a part of their family. Then they had to stay through this whole process, right? They had to stay while first tower went down, and then they still had to stay until the second tower went down. So like the process of being in this, like in this place that is being destructed and trying to save people, and like I'm sure they were clear on what's going on, at some point. So
Yep.
the ones who got out, like reading now that they're not getting their benefits, like I just, I've seen a lot of things in my life. And I lived in a lot of different countries. You said 5 different countries, immigrating to 5 different countries. I could never imagine something like that happening in the United States. Because number one, we can write that check. And I think majority, if not every single citizen, normal person, not in the government, just regular people would approve that, they earned that, they should get those benefits.
Yeah,
And then, it brings us, it's like imagine like it was all asbestos. So I'm sure that majority of them suffering from cancer, and that kind of cancer, it will kill people really fast. So it's like they save people, they never got the benefits, and then they're going out with a lot of regret. And this thing is like, I am doing Wings for Heroes because I want to take somebody, say, hey man, like, thanks for saving me. One of the things that one of the best life experiences I had was paragliding. I mean, to me, it's magic. You go flying with a plastic bag and 3 strings, and I want you to experience that. And I think by doing that, I will bring a lot of people back to life. And oh, by the way, if they need therapy, I have that. I have psychologists. I have everything. I'm really grateful for these extra 25 years. And every day I'm thinking about people who ran in and didn't come out. Like, I hope I am worthy enough, like I earned that time.
yeah. No, I think you're doing a great work, and I love it. One more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, and I apologize for tying your Saturday up all day, but
You
you
never
have
need to
a
apologize, brother. To me, you never need to apologize.
you have a national bestseller with Steve Forbes, a book you've written. Let's talk about that for a minute. How did that come about?
There is
And
that.
yeah, and so how did that come about? That's pretty an awesome
Um,
accomplishment.
oops, sorry, I had my done.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry about that. Can you see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, after September 11th, it was a chaos after. So the city was completely shut down. The National Guard moved in. There were planes, helicopters flying low, dudes driving around in Humvees with machine guns. Really, like, we were driving. My friend lived north from the Bronx, so outside of the city, and basically, like, you would have to stop regularly because the Humvees, and they were going somewhere really fast, and they were just all over the place. It was really like, when you see Hollywood movies showing a war zone, like there's nothing, and then in an hour everybody piles in. It was actually like in the movie. They all piled in. They were really serious and stern, and after the city opened up, it was just a few days. After a few days, they realized that it was not some connected plot, and there's nothing else going to come out. That it was done through the planes, and that was the only plan. They left. They opened up the roads, and I got in the car and I went to Colorado. From Colorado, I went to California. Then I returned to Colorado. Then I got an offer for a trading job in Texas, and then from Texas, I got hired by American Express in 2003 And from 2003 until 2015, Colorado was my home. What was the topic? I'm sorry, I kind of went into visual thinking about the.
how did you go down the path of writing the book with Steve Forbes?
Oh, okay, yeah. So after I came back, to Colorado, my business was I worked for American Express Financial Advisors, and then I left and I opened my own registered investment advisory firm. And I have a degree in accounting and finance. And the accounting degree taught me how to study the financial statements, how to analyze them. And I found a huge loss on Citibanks. It was in their footnotes, and footnotes are in the back. And it says, if this happens and this happens, then this loss at some point will be on the statements that the whole world will see. But that loss is already there. It's just time until it makes it. And I started moving all the clients. I got all my clients and I said, look, if they have it, everybody else has it. And when it comes to the market, it will be too late because the size of it is so huge. And I started a radio show, and, it grew to like 7 different states. And that's all I was talking about. I was talking about the fact that I find it on the financial statements, and when it comes to the market, it would be too late to get out. And after the markets, after we had the 2009 collapse, I was one of the very few people who could say, look, I didn't lose any of my clients' money because I saw it was coming and we were ready and we were done. Then you can go back into the market until, the bloodbath is over. And one of the topics that my topic is, my topic was taxes. That's one thing that I really like. Yeah, finance, investment, it's so interesting, but at the end of the day is how much you get taxed. And the US tax code is like one of the longest publications in history. It's much, much bigger than the Bible. The US tax code 10 years ago had 80,000 pages, and all this planning it's endless what you can do with it. For somebody who has a creative mind and wants to play with different laws like I do, for me, it was a really exciting thing. And one of the things that I always talked about in my radio show is that the fact is that, we have a government that is too big. It's one of the not productive. Yes, we need services, and we really need well-functioning and big, strong government, but we don't need a huge machine that I think after hiring Elon Musk and trying with Doge to cut the expenses, we see how proportionally they cut out very small percentage, right? But you could see it forever. The numbers are just getting bigger now with 36 trillion. And one of the things I was talking about, look, is one of the fixing it is not allowing the government to grow so huge that, that it's just this entity that unmanageable that we cannot even, help ourselves because, like one side doesn't know what the other one does. And anyway, I got a phone call, and then I got invited to present in New York. Steve Forbes had a symposium. It was called Success in the New Economy. It was 2011. And then 2 years later, I got offered to contribute to the book that he was writing. And I got to write not on investments for what I was, famous at that time, but for taxation, on topic of one little part of taxation that affects a lot more people than it was meant to. And in 2014, it became the bestseller. All the money was donated to charity, so I didn't really see any financial gain from it. But it's a big deal to say that you work in finance and you co-authored the book with Steve Forbes. And I think, as we talked before, I ended up going to Ukraine instead of enjoying my newfound celebrity status in the States.
I still think that's a very awesome accomplishment, though.
But it's it was really exciting. Thank you. I think that I did that book to realize, I think it was exactly 20 years since I've lived in the States. And I remembered on the red carpet, when you walk out, you get the award, and you go outside, and they stand there with the microphones, right? You go on the side, they do the interviews, and the girl calls me on the side, and she says, like, what does it mean to you? And I realized, when I came to the States, I got the religious asylum. I had a refugee status, I had a religious asylum status. So First Amendment allowed me to come to the United States. First Amendment allowed me to write and express my thoughts. And it's because of the First Amendment in the United States Constitution that I was standing there in Hollywood, like some lady was asking me, in a nice dress with a microphone, asking me something about it. And that's the only thing that I could say. I say, I'm here because of the United States Constitution. What?
Yep.
I said, yes, I am an immigrant who came here, and everything that I did and can do is because the founding fathers wrote this thing in the United States Constitution. I got a religious asylum because there was no freedom of speech, no freedom of religion to where I was coming from. So I left the US as an American. Everywhere I go, I try to show what America has shown to me. When I came back in '92, and it was like, welcome, here is the place you live, here are the skis that you can use to ski, and when you're done skiing, here's the kitchen where you can eat. That what it was like my first introduction. And through all the things that we've talked about, like I'm really grateful, I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity. And I'm really grateful to all the first responders. I'm grateful to all the people that volunteer, like our number one, and go to war, and they stop bullets with their body. And it's my mission, to just give back and show everybody else that one person can actually do a lot. We just don't try. And like with what you're trying, like I hope we stay in touch because I want to support you. You will hit some bumps on the road. It's not when you go and try to create a system or a bridge for the system, the other one, it's really, it's psychologically a tough thing to do, but you've gone so far as, you're getting a doctorate, so it's meaningful to you, because otherwise I don't think you can do that work while you do your work. Long hours,
It's
stress,
tough.
yeah. So, I think it's really important to do something, like people feel like they're drawn, like they want to do something every day, and just like say, look, don't quit your job and like move to another part of the world, but little things we all can do. Christmas is coming. Soup kitchens are, I think, one of the best things. Like you really realize like the line between really well-being and like homelessness is really thin, and the same is life and death, right and wrong. And I think I'm really glad. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's first responders. I was like, I am just a guest and I don't really know much about it, but I hope this was valuable to your audience.
Yeah, absolutely it was. As we wrap up, what's what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Wingsforheroes.org contact button.
Awesome. And if they want to, where can they get your book at?
I think it's on Amazon. We're not promoting it anymore. I'm using it as we have, Brent, we have another book. I'm writing a book for Wings for Heroes, but maybe you'll promote that one, because this
You let me
this
know
is done. But
when it gets out and it's time to come out, and you are always welcome back
yeah,
on here.
thank you. I
Well,
am writing a
thank
book
you
for
for
Wings for Heroes because that is what
y-
the world needs to hear. Finance stuff,
uh,
there are plenty of them, but
yep.
like true causes and real stories and what people go through that's what's coming next from Lyubim.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining me today, and we will be in touch.
Thank you for having me, Brent. See you soon.
Hmm.
Bye.
Just once.